Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Summon Skull Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for July 2021. A lot of you really liked the first Summon Skull deck profile that I did a while back for post Fist of the Gadgets. We had a bunch of cards from that set, including the different forms of Summon Skull in Ritual, Xyz, Synchro, and Fusion, and I still wanted to incorporate those playstyles in this Summon Skull deck, which the main focus of the deck is to summon out all of those different versions of the Summon Skull onto the field, and then just go for many more extra deck plays that we can use and incorporate for all of those cards and all of the Summon Skull support. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the main monster in the deck, we are running 3 of the Summon Skull. This card is just Yugi's go-to boss normal monster. I vividly remember this card as being the card that defeated Weevil in the first Duelist Kingdom duel, being able just to destroy his Great Moth with all the water on the field. With this card, it's always treated as an Archfiend card, so that's another thing you have to remember with this card. So very, very useful for some of the additional cards we run in the deck, and just a powerhouse at 2,500 attack and 1,200 defense, just being able to have just one tribute to summon it out. But we have plenty of other ways to make use of this card in the deck, including the many different summoning forms we have, with our main deck one being Archfiend's Awakening. With this card, you can ritual summon this card with Contract with the Abyss, and this card's name becomes Summon Skull on the field, but still treated as an Archfiend card. It cannot be destroyed by battle except by battles with a ritual monster, and it cannot be destroyed by monster effects except for those of ritual monsters. And if this card, ritual summon you control, is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you can special summon one Summon Skull from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So that just gives you more resource on the field. Whether you were to use that Summon Skull that you summon out for another ritual, a fusion play, or an Xyz play, you have plenty of options in this deck to fully utilize all the different play styles. What's great about your Archfiend's Awakening is it can also be used for a fusion setup or even an Xyz setup into cards like Archfiend's Ascent, giving you all this to work with, being a level 6 ritual monster. For the other support in the deck, the biggest thing is that we have a level 6 Summon Skull Synchro monster in the form of Archfiend's Call, which is a level 6 monster, so you can't necessarily make Summon Skull be part of the Synchro summon for that card, so we needed more of a setup in the deck for a level 6 Synchro, and the easiest way I found it is just to have a level 4 monster with a very easy to summon tuner monster, and that is Red Resonator. Red Resonator being the level 2 monster, and Yugioh being my specified level 4 monster, being able to just special summon this card out onto the field, and then give you the option of using it with the tuner of your Red Resonator, or even just being able to summon it off of Red Resonator when it is normal summon, giving you the 2 monsters you need for your level 6. So being able to have this synchro play just gives you another Archfiend monster on the field that much more easily, and just more of the setup with these cards both being fiends as more protection for some of the other cards we run in the deck. Also, as another level 4 added backup option, I also run 3 Skullmeister. Now this is in the deck as my hand trap of choice, but also just being able to stop graveyard plays, but also being able to work with Red Resonator for the level 6 Synchro as an added backup for that setup. But still good for the fact that we're also running Allure of Darkness in the deck, working more with the Fiend type cards, being a dark attribute for the banish cost of Allure of Darkness. It just fits very, very well, much more I would say than Ash Blossom, being that with Ash Blossom it's a tuner itself and wouldn't really work well with any of the other level 4s we're running for any needed synchro play in the extra deck. And for another Archfiend spot, I run 1 Archfiend Heiress. Now this can either be Archfiend Heiress or even your Archfiend Commander, being a level 6 special summon card you can summon out into the field. So if you don't want to run Archfiend Heiress, you can put Archfiend Emperor into the deck instead. Just another good, easy to special summon level 6 monster. Archfiend Heiress, if this card is sent to the graveyard because of a card effect or being destroyed by battle, you can add 1 Archfiend card from your deck to your hand, except for Archfiend Heiress. You can only use this effect of Archfiend Heiress once per turn. So you have the search power for Archfiend's Awakening, or even Summon Skull when you use this monster on the field. And even just a Foolish Burial Send can set up a search with this card for a much more important card, I would say, from your main deck to your hand. But if you wanted to run Archfiend's Emperor just as an easy level 6 to special summon on the field to use with our overlay, you can substitute it in instead of this card in the deck. And that is it for the monsters. We run a pretty low monster count, but altogether these cards just make more and more monsters with each other being used for resources. So being able to overlay with Archfiend's Awakening and Summon Skull, the Synchro play then can also go into another Xyz play or Fusion play. All these cards work as cards that can special summon more and more cards out on the field. And a good amount of the spells in the deck either search or special summon those cards, just adding to the search power. So for the first of the spells, for Summon Skull support, we are running 3 Yugioh, the Magical Mist. You target 1 Summon Skull or 1 Thunder monster in your monster zone. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls with defense less than or equal to the attack of that monster. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. So just a good way to clear out your opponent's field, being the main go-to spell that Yugi used as well. With your Summon Skull, this card is counted as an Archfiend monster, but the big part is the fact that it's Summon Skull. And also that the other cards we run also are counted as Summon Skull. So whether you have any of these on the field, you can still activate Yugioh, the Magical Mist, and destroy a good number of your opponent's monsters on the field. You can't use, you can't conduct your battle phase this turn, but I'd say it's an equal benefit depending on how many monsters your opponent may have and just how much you have to invest into your own monsters for your plays. I also run 2 Contract with the Abyss. Now, I only run 2 of this card in the deck because I also run the 2 additional Preparation of Rites. Now, this is more search power. You have Contract with the Abyss being the needed card for ritual summoning out your Archfiend's Awakening. So with this card, you have the option of adding a ritual monster from your deck to your hand. That's why we run more copies of Archfiend Awakening, then Contract with the Abyss, and then being able to add this card back from our graveyard after we use it against our opponent for the first ritual play, giving us an option to then go into another ritual play with whatever level 6 monsters we may have on the field or in our hand. For more of the fusion play, I run 2 Polymerization and also 2 Super Polymerization. Not only do we have, which I haven't even showed it all this video yet, but Archfiend's Manifestation, needing 1 Summon Skull and 1 Dark Monster, which will work well with all the Dark Attribute monsters we're running in the deck, along with Summon Skull itself. But Super Polymerization gives us options to use our opponent's resources, being able to use their Dark Attribute monsters, or even a normal monster with some of the extra deck setup we have. Polymerization, using cards from our hand, just like I said, needing a Dark Attribute monster, and 1 Summon Skull. But with Super Polymerization, they have to be on the field. Just remember that with this one. For more search power for our main go-to card in the deck, I also run 3 Summoner's Art. We run 3 Summon Skull, so as long as we can open up this card in our hand, it's basically a search for one of our main go-to monsters, which can be used for the majority of the cards we run in the deck altogether. But special summoning it out onto the field is another important part of all your plays. So I run 2 Ancient Rules. You can mix and match these numbers. If you wanted to run 2 Summoner Arts and 3 Ancient Rules, you could try that play, but it has to be a normal monster. Remember that. So I'd say more search is beneficial. Then you can just use that search instead of, special summoning with Ancient Rules. Fusion plays, ritual plays, you have all those options available to you with the Summon Skull that you added with your Summoner's Arts. For more draw power into particular cards you may need, if you open up doubles of some particular cards, also I run 2 Allure of Darkness, just being able to use the good majority of the resources in our main deck aside from our Red Resonator. For draw power and the fact that it's not a once per turn, I'm just running 2 of it though. I feel that's really all you need for the draw power in the deck as a whole. And for some of the one-ofs for the spells, I run 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Foolish Burial. The Foolish Burial is in here for the Archfiend Heiress, but even being able to set up some of the other cards in the graveyard for, let's say, just special summoning back onto the field could be a big bonus for Foolish Burial, and then just being able to summon them back with Monster Reborn, self-explanatory there, and clearing our opponent's back row for some of our boss monster Summon Skull monsters we may summon out of the field is why I run the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. If you don't want to run Harpy's Feather Duster, you can always put in your Call by the Grave instead as the final one-of spell option. And that is it for the spells. Moving on now to the traps. 3 Call of the Haunted. That's really all I want to run in this deck. Being able to summon back our Summon Skull onto the field and just either attack our opponent with it or give us another resource for going into a Ritual, Fusion, or Xyz monster. You have plenty to rely on with this card and Call of the Haunted. And if you have multiple Call of the Haunted on the field and multiple Summon Skulls, that's just more and more to play and summon out to the field. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck for our fusion monsters. I'd say it's the easiest card to summon out, so I'm running 3 Archfiend's Manifestation. You need 1 Summon Skull and 1 Dark Monster, so you can even use your opponent's Dark Attribute monster with your Summon Skull you have in the field with Super Polymerization to summon this card. This card's name becomes Summon Skull while on the field, making it usable with Makyu the Magical Mist, but it's still treated as an Archfiend card. And all Summon Skull you control gain 500 attack, and if this fusion summon card you control is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Summon Skull from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So more resources, just like the Ritual Archfiend's Awakening, back onto the field for Summon Skull, giving you more cards to use with all your other different plays. For more of the generic fusion support, I also run 1 Starving Venom Fusion Dragon and 1 First of the Dragons, especially with Super Polymerization in this card. Being able to take one of their normal monsters if they're running it can be a big surprise against your opponent. And the Starving Venom, just 2 Dark Attribute monsters on the field. Very, very easy with this deck, including our Ritual or even some of our other different extra deck monsters. For the Synchro monsters, running a lower number of the Archfiend's Call, just because it's a little more difficult to summon out than Archfiend's Manifestation, and the fact that you really can't ever use Summon Skull to summon this card, so we have to rely on other Synchro means to summon it out. But this card's name becomes Summon Skull, once again usable with Makyu, and also being able to protect your card since your opponent cannot target any Summon Skull you control with card effects. And if the Synchro Summon card is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Summon Skull from your hand, deck, or graveyard. I like that all these resources tie together with one another. It just gives you more of a play setup to always have a card available to use in your deck against your opponent. But also for the fact that we run level 2 tuners that we can use with our level 6 monsters, which are the majority of what we run in the deck. I also run 1 Void Ogre Dragon just as an added option for some of the tuner plays. Just for the setup, remember with that setup that this requires a Dark Tuner. So if you want to change any of the lineup, you could always add in a Plague Spreader Zombie to run with the Void Ogre Dragon. If you didn't want to do that, you always have the option of Beals, the Diabolic Dragon, as an added backup for summoning out cards with your Plague Spreader Zombie that you can run in the deck. But even if you didn't have this option in the deck for both of these cards, you can add in more generic, I would say, cards like Red Dragon Archfiend or even your Borreload Savage Dragon to work with some of the few link monsters we have in the deck as well. But more fitting for just the lower hand cost that you may run in this deck as well, can work for more of your setup also. And for the Xyz monsters, I run 2 Archfiend's Ascent. This is the go-to, just needing 2 level 6 monsters to make it. So any of your Summon Skull monsters, or even your go-to support for the setup of your other monsters on the field, it becomes Summon Skull. Once again, Makyu setup, but still treating as an Archfiend card. If Summon Skulls you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach 1 material from this card instead. And if this Xyz Summon card is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Summon Skull from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Same setup as all the other ones, being more of an Xyz card, which can be easily summoned with 2 level 6 monsters. You mostly want to rely on Call of the Haunted and some more special summoning options on the field, but still very, very simple to summon it out onto the field to use. For more of the generic Xyz support, I also run 1 Swordbreaker and also just 1 Ptolemy M7 as more generic rank 6s, like I said, to summon out, whether it's battling against your opponent's monsters or just returning resources from your own graveyard or your opponent's field back to the hand. And for the Link monsters, I run 1 Nightmare Unicorn and 1 Link Male Archfiend. The Link Male Archfiend being more for the setup of all the different types of extra deck monsters we run in the deck, including the fact that it just needs 2 or more monsters, including a Ritual Fusion Synchro or Xyz, being able to then, if this card is special summon, target 1 Ritual Fusion Synchro or Xyz monster you control or in the graveyard, and all monsters your opponent control, basically in the graveyard of those monsters, lose attack equal to that original monster until the end of the turn. And your opponent cannot target monsters you control that were special summoned from the extra deck with monster effects, and if this card will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish 1 Ritual Fusion Synchro or Xyz in your graveyard instead. So just a great boss monster to get out into the field by using the basic setup of all the other different cards we run in the deck also. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, just focusing on the summoning of all the different monsters. If you were to summon out, let's say, our first play, which is Archfiend Manifestation, you can use just any of the fusion setup you have. So if you have your super polymerization, you can use your Summon Skull in the field with one of your opponent's Dark Attribute monsters. But an easier play is polymerization, since you can have one of the Dark Attribute cards in your hand. Using that and your Summon Skull to easily summon out your Archfiend Manifestation. And then if this card were to be destroyed by an opponent's card, you can then at least summon out another Summon Skull, which you can continue the plays with, let's say, one of your ritual plays, being the ritual spell, which you can activate your Contract with the Abyss using the Summon Skull for the play to then summon out your Archfiend's Awakening onto the field for that ritual option. And then continuing that, if this card leaves the field, giving you another Summon Skull, even if they're in the graveyard, you could still summon them with that card. And going for the next play, which you would have to get out another level 6 monster. So either you can special summon back to the field with one of your spell or traps, a resource that you already used, overlaying the 2 to then go into your rank 6 play, which is your Archfiend's Ascent. And then with that, once this card leaves the field, you have the Summon Skull back onto the field to use. But once again, the biggest thing is just the fact that you can't use Summon Skull easily to summon out the level 6 Synchro. So that's where Red Resonator comes into play with one of your level 4 monsters, using those 2 to go into the level 6 Synchro play, which then this card can be used in the same way we mentioned before for either going into the Fusion, Ritual, or Xyz monster. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. I always love updating this deck, and I'm still having a lot of fun with the different play styles you have with it. And I hope you all enjoy and give it a try as well. But until next time, and as always, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.